Hello and welcome. It's 11:30. It's the 14th day of November 2022. It's almost 70 degrees and sunny here at Site B. Have y'all started your holiday shopping yet? Shameless plug here. If you haven't, you might want to check out the OGGM merch over at Teespring. I just spoke to my artist and we've got a whole new line of stuff maybe coming up. So get in early. All right, it's Monday. It's 11:30. It's time to take up the tabletop role-playing game news. Anything that we missed since the last time we spoke on Saturday? I don't know. There's probably something. I can't think of it. Oh, yeah, there's two huge stories from Wizards of the Coast, both of which not looking good. In fact, we got a lot of Wizards of the Coast news, and it's not looking good. It's not looking good for WOTC. So, yeah, let's address the doom and gloom coming out of the Wizards of the Coast Hasbro right at the top news thing. Number one, Bank of America and CNN did a story on Hasbro stock tanking 34%. Tanking 34% over the 3-day weekend. This comes off of Hasbro announcing a $60 million loss for Q3. $60 million lost from this time last year. And now, over the 3-day weekend, we're looking at the stock 34% drop. That is huge for Hasbro stockholders like myself. My 10 shares of Hasbro stock are worth as much as this sandwich, maybe less right now. Like, it's a horrible time to sell them. And it's a horrible, but it's been a great time to buy. Why did this happen? Why? Well, unfortunately for you, Wizards of the Coast, all the blame relies totally on you this time around. Mostly two reasons. Number one, the utter mishandling of Magic the Gathering over the past several months. Now, normally I don't cover Magic the Gathering because I'm not a Magic the Gathering guy, unless it directly, has anything to do with D&D or Hasbro or the direction Hasbro might be taking D&D. So I'll occasionally mention Magic, but I don't really play and I don't really follow Magic the Gathering news. But this was one of the number one stories on Bank of America / CNN / the stock market, which I do follow because I do have stock. All my Magic the Gathering friends have already brought it to my attention. The local Magic the Gathering judge here at Site B has already spoken to me about it. The projected $1 billion that Hasbro projected Magic the Gathering would make them by the end of 2022, that's no longer on the docket right now. Heads are gonna roll. A 34% drop in stock and 100% of the blame, Wizards of the Coast, 90% of the blame on how they have been handling Magic the Gathering. $1,000 for 6 packs? Upping prices, lowering card count, lowering card quality, glutting the market with cards, players be unable to keep up with the latest changes and ban lists, more and more players reverting to Commander because Commander, you can kind of just sort of play whatever way you want. There is no real official format for Commander. It's generally what's agreed upon, and making a Commander deck is a lot cheaper than trying to stay current with whatever the latest Magic the Gathering is. There's been a glut of Magic cards in 2022 and multiple sets, multiple special sets. Remember the whole Magic the Gathering Walking Dead thing, Magic the Gathering Dungeons and Dragons the cartoon thing, Magic the Gathering Transformers thing, Magic the Gathering Super Special Editions, Magic the Gathering from the Vaults, and then of course the $1,000 anniversary Magic the Gathering set, plus the Target Magic the Gathering sets are charged the special limited edition Target Magic the Gathering sets, which have been around forever, since pretty much as long as Magic has been around. Those used to be 2 or 3 packs for the price of 1. Now it's 1 pack for the price of 1, and the packs are lower quality than the packs you could get from a direct reseller. So all these have resulted in a huge cascade of Magic the Gathering sales dropping tremendously to the point where it is 34% drop from Friday. Now, this has been a long time coming, but it's a quarterly thing. It's whenever stock reports go in. So obviously the 34% just didn't happen overnight. Poof, magic. 3-day weekend. No, it's just when everything catches up and how the stock market works and accounting and things I don't even pretend to understand. All I know is when Bank of America says double down because Hasbro stock is dropping because it just suffered a 34% loss. And that loss is entirely on the shoulders of Wizards of the Coast. Not looking good for you, Wizards of the Coast. I wouldn't be surprised if some heads roll before the end of the week. Looking at you, Crawford. Second news, also from Wizards of the Coast, as if they just can't shut, literally, just let's take a sidebar. Hire a press secretary, Wizards of the Coast. Hire a press consultant / secretary. Stop making your own posts. Hire somebody whose job is to professionally take your wackadoodle ideas and turn them into presentable content so you don't end up shooting yourself in the foot. At this point in time, Wizards of the Coast, you are your own worst enemy. And your dwindling fan base, the idiots out there like Jeannie D, Mark Holmes, what's that other guy, the new guy's name? Gamers on Games, Garby. They are not doing you any favors. They are making you look worse with the stuff that's coming out of their mouth. So please, Wizards of the Coast, hire a fucking press secretary. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm back. I need a soda after that. Wizards of the Coast is a place that we started a rumor that they are going to cancel the open game license. Wizards of the Coast has apparently started a rumor that with the final rendition of 1D&D, which we will see sometime next year, they are going to cancel the open game license. That means that all open game license products, like half of my gaming board, are going to be canceled. That they're just going to stop the open game license. Just boom. You can't carry that. You can't sell it. Boom. Except this is the second or third time Wizards of the Coast has attempted to cancel the open game license. And unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast, while you can start a smear and campaign to give the open game license bad press and try and stranglehold your supporters and try and misdirect the news to get people to believe that you are canceling the OGL to start a mass panic of people switching over to 5e. And of course, we're going to have people saying, well, the OSR is dead. Wizards of the Coast has canceled the OSR. D&D won. The edition wars are over. We're going to have people like that spouting that based upon this rumor. So let's just get things straight from the horse's mouth, from the attorney who originally processed the trial. You cannot cancel the OGL. It's Common Core. It's open source. It's just like Lovecraft, Sherlock Holmes, or Dracula. It's public domain. The second you put it out there, you cannot take it back. Anybody and their dog can use the OGL. More so than ever. Just take a look at any game, site out there. Look at DriveThru. Look at Big Geek Emporium. Look at Lulu. Look at Itch.io. Look at the hundreds of titles being listed every week on Game Trade Magazine and on Alliance and on Diamond and all the other distributors and Gamma. The hundreds of titles that are technically fall under the OGL and have since whenever the fuck the OGL came out. Before 3, during 3, I don't even remember anymore. You can't cancel it. It's out there. People can still use it. What they can do, just so we play fairsies, what Wizards of the Coast can do is make it so 1D&D does not support the open game license, and you cannot make product for 1D&D unless you follow the specific terms of whatever Wizards of the Coast is going to come up with to replace the open game license. They can also make it so the virtual tabletop that they are supposedly production of, has anybody seen any of it since it was announced? No. But the supposed VTT that they're working on, and definitely D&D Beyond, they can make it so they do not support third-party OGL stuff. So anything on the DM's Guild would not be supported by the VTT or by D&D Beyond if Wizards of the Coast makes this happen with 1D&D. There goes the whole 1D&D is going to be backwards compatible bullshit. Well, I think you've already shown that it's not going to be backwards compatible even before you announced this rumor. And again, this is a rumor. It's not 100% sure, as with anything with 1D&D, until you actually see it in print in the final product. take this with a grain of salt. This could just be Wizards of the Coast trying to start a fire to force people to come over to 1D&D. Wizards of the Coast, when 1D&D comes out, can make a new SRD/license that says, in order to make product for 1D&D, you have to follow this. We will not support anything that does not follow this. More so, they can make it so all the third-party stuff that you used to be able to install on D&D Beyond, like the Goodman Games crap or generic VTT stuff or the DM's Guild stuff or the unofficial D&D stuff or house rules. House rules? If they don't specifically follow whatever Wizards of the Coast is going to come up with. Now, again, this is a rumor. Not true. We don't know it for a fact. So yeah, unless it follows whatever the specific new, whatever they're going to call it is, they won't support it on 1D&D. They won't support it on D&D Beyond, and they won't support it on the alleged VTT. But they can't stop the OGL. They can't stop Goodman Games from making their 3E stuff or their 5E stuff. They can't stop third-party companies from making 5E product. They can't stop OSR products from making OSR products. They can't stop people making stuff that follows 0 edition, 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 3.5, even 4th, Homes, Blue Book, whatever. Anything that, pre-exists Wizards of the Coast, they can't stop you from making content for it. Anything that out there that is still supporting any version of 3 or 3.5, thank you, Steve. Apparently Steve feels left out. They can't stop you from making stuff from it. They can't stop you from making 5e stuff. So all those products that you see on the pike right now coming down from Kickstarters that are for use with 5e or have the little 5e circle with the 5 on it, they can't stop that. Okay, the 5e SRD is out there. The OGL is out there. It's common source. It's open source, common code. Wizards of the Coast cannot cancel the OGL, cannot stop the OSR, cannot end the edition wars. If anything, if this rumor is true, all Wizards of the Coast is going to do is cause more people to abandon them, especially if worst case scenarios, they say you cannot put homebrew rules on D&D Beyond unless it follows our very specific 1D&D only rules. A lot of homebrewers and playtesters out there will take that as a no, fuck you. I want to be able to use this stuff. You're saying I can't? Well, guess what? Roll20 says I can. Remember Pathfinder? Remember what happened with Pathfinder? Remember how Pathfinder kicked your ass for almost 8 years, Wizards of the Coast? Remember that 2-3 year period where they weren't producing anything other than board games and Magic the Gathering? Part of that is because of this. So between this rumor, which may or may not come directly from Wizards of the Coast, though it probably does, and the 34% stock drop and the very ugly tunnel Wizards of the Coast creative, especially the Magic the Gathering part, is looking at right now. They've got a double-barreled shotgun aimed at them. And Hasbro and the board of directors and the stockholders who just lost that much money, where, Bank of America, CNN, and Wall Street Journal are all posting stories on it going, yeah. And research show it is 100% Magic the Gathering's fault. Yeah, that's a double-barreled shotgun. Because, again, remember, Hasbro doesn't need you, Wizards of the Coast, to make Magic the Gathering. And in fact, looking at the way you've glutted Magic the Gathering and ruined the franchise, they're either going to restructure Magic the Gathering again or go, you're not really shepherding one of our number one sources of income in a way that's making us a profit. Our Magic the Gathering fan base is turning on us. So, yeah, maybe we need somebody else to look over Magic the Gathering for a while. Meanwhile, what's going D&D? Hasbro doesn't need Wizards of the Coast to make Dungeons and Dragons. They could literally just do, pay for profit. Work for hire. Just hire, which they've already said they're going to do with the cultural consultants. If you remember the letter Christopher Perkins went out, that's basically saying from now on, we're not going to have in-house staff whose responsibility is editing and consulting on the sensitivity of projects. We're going to have work for hire. We're going to hire people for specifically that product, pay them for a lot less, and kick them to the curb when the product's done. And if you don't like it, we can blame them. It's not our fault you found something offensive in Dragonlance. It's not our fault you found something in the Deck of Many Things book. It's the sensitivity consultant. They missed it. That's their fault. We'll make a new copy. So yeah, Wizards of the Coast is already announced. Well, Hasbro's basically said, Wizards of the Coast, you need to say that going forward, most of our in-house stuff is now going to be done for work for hire, starting with this. And then they're going to go, you know what? Yeah, Magic the Gathering, we don't need you to make Magic the Gathering. We can hire a bunch of kids to do it for half what we're paying you. We don't need you to continue to make D&D product. We can make other people work for hire, make D&D product for a lot less without, and maybe actually, I don't know, closing statement, hire a fucking press secretary, Wizards of the Coast. Instead of paying $200,000 to hire a sensitivity cultural consultant, pay some kid $50,000 to be your press secretary and take all this nonsense, shake it up, and represent it in a way that you do not anger everybody on both sides of the fence. So yeah, that's the big news regarding Wizards of the Coast and my take on it. Of course, as always, my take is based upon what I know, and there's tons of facts out there that we don't know anything about, so I cannot say with 100% accuracy that what I've just said is true, but about 80% I think is correct, and you can check the stories. The links are in the description down below. Wow, I assume there's something else going on in the gaming world. We're going to talk about that in a separate vlog because that was exhausting. Till next time, I am the OGGM. Thank you to each and every one of you who helped me hit 9,000 subs. Stick with me as we start the slow climb to 1,000 subs and being monetized. Like, share, subscribe, buy my merch for the holidays. Stay safe, and I will be back in a few minutes with the rest of the gaming news. But first, I need a break, and I need to reset the camera because it's shaking, and I don't know how to top that.